is does translate as equals 5 less than 4 times the output. How would we translate 5 less than 4 times the output? What do you think? Can you see any idea? Nope. Brandon, any idea? Huh? 4x minus 5. That's right. And this is the, you're tempted to do this, right? The input we know is x. But this word tells us we have to reverse this order. So it should translate to y equals 4x minus 5, except it asks us to write it in function form, right? So function form, so we're looking for 4x minus 5, which works for both of those, and this one, in fact. But these two are not in function form, so that makes B the correct answer. Any questions on that one? So we could write that. This is the equation form. This is the function form. We replace the y with f of x. Okay. Number 16. Kim's family is visiting Lofty Mountain State Park. A cable car takes the family from the visitor center at the base of the mountain to the historical marker at the peak. So from the bottom to the top, they give an equation that describes the position of the cable car as it travels from the peak to the top to the visitor center at the base or bottom. Which is the slope of the cable? Well, the equation that describes this position, or basically this line, is 4 times x plus 10y equals 20. They asked this whole question when they could have just said, hey, what's the slope of this line, right? But this is how they ask them on the EOC. It's going to seem harder than it is sometimes because they're going to frame it as a real-world problem, which, in theory, is how we use math in real-world problems, right? But for our purposes, all we have to know is we're looking at this equation, and we need to be able to discern from this equation what is the slope of this line. How would we do that? Anybody have an idea? So we learned different forms of linear equations. We learned slope-intercept form. We learned standard form. And we learned point-slope form. Which of these can you see the slope in? Can we see the slope here? Yes, that's the slope. Can we see the slope here? No. Can we see the slope here? We can't. But the problem is, we can't really rewrite this with a point, because this means we'll be plugging in a point here, right? We don't really have a point. But we can rearrange this equation into slope-intercept form, which means we just get the y by itself. Once we have the y by itself, we look to see what is that number being multiplied by our input, or our x term. That is the slope. So that's all we're doing here. So we look the y all by itself on the left and everything else on the right. The y has to be positive, have a positive one coefficient, can't have a negative or anything up there, right? So what should we do first to get it by itself? Subtract 4x. So now we have 10y equals negative 4x plus 20, and I did put my x term in front of my constant because that's how it is in slope-intercept form, right? Now, is my y by itself? Not by itself. It is on the left side. There are no other terms in there, but it's got a coefficient of 10. How can I get rid of that coefficient of 10? Yes. Divide everything by 10. Everything on the left, everything on the right. Now my y is by itself. That leaves me negative 4 tenths x plus 20 20 divided by 10, that's pretty easy to do in my head, is just fraction simplified. So, if you have a problem with that, remember, on your calculator, it's 4 plus minus ABC 10 and equals, and it will simplify that for you. So our equation in slope-intercept form will simplify to y equals negative 2 times x plus 2. So what is the slope of the line represents the location of the car? Very good, negative 2, 6. So that is in the slope spot. Any questions on 16? Okay. 17 and 18, we just finished this unit on 17 and 18, so we're going to do those. 17, so what I would recommend for your strategy is rewrite. I'm not sure what you're trying to edit. I would rewrite each of these factors, separating the numbers and the variables all out. So I would start by this first factor. Instead of the square root of 25 x squared times y, I would write it as the square root of 25 times the square root of x squared times the square root of y, and then do the same thing over here. Times the square root of 32 times the square root of y to the fourth, and times the square root of x. And then I would just go through and start simplifying. So from here, you should be able to simplify. What is the square root of 25? 5. Can we find, is x squared a perfect square? Can we take the square root of that? What would that be? X. Can we take the square root of y to the first power? And there's not a perfect square in there, so that's going to stay like it is. How about the square root of 32? Can we just take the square root of 32? We're going to simplify that one, right? So we're going to simplify that one. What is the perfect square? What's the biggest perfect square factor of 32? 4 is 1. What's the biggest? 16, right? So, if you pull 4 out, you could do that, but at the end you have to recognize that actually your other factor is 8. It has a 4 in it as well. So you do it again. And that's okay. But that's when we try to pick the biggest perfect square first. So this is going to be the square root of 16 times the square root of 2. How about y to the fourth power? Can we just take the square root of that? What's the square root of that? Perfect. So that's y squared. And how about the square root of x to the first power? Just going to stay like that, right? So now everything, let's see, what's the square root of 16? Let's do that next. 4. Alright. So everything that's not under a radical goes to the left. So it's all factors. So we're going to do 5 times 4 is 20. X, so I'm going to cross these out as I include them in my answer. X, y squared. I don't have anything else on the outside of the square root symbol, so now I give myself the square root symbol, and I've got y, x, and 2 that have to stay under the square root. And I'm going to write them in order, number first, and then alphabetically. So we see that, what is which one, A, B, C, or D? X. 18 is a little bit different because there are no variables, but if we have options. We could just multiply that together and look for the biggest perfect square factor, and that would work fine. But I think because that would be a bigger number, I think I would go ahead and simplify each and then work from there. So I'm going to simplify the square root of 24. What's the perfect square factor of 24? 4 is the perfect square, but it's the square root of 4 times the square root of 6. And how about 30? Is there a perfect square factor in 30? 1 is 30, 2 is 15, 5 is 6. No perfect squares, right? So we're going to bring that down. Square root of 4 is 2. Now, these can't be simplified, so we're going to multiply them. So is that our final answer? So of 180, right? So what is that perfect square factor of 180? Well, 9 I know for sure, but 9 times 20, there's still a perfect square in 20 as well. We could do it in stages, or we could just go through, start taking 180 and divide until we get the biggest perfect square. It is 36, that's right. So it's going to be 2 times the square of 36 times 5, I think, right, Akira? All right, so 36 times 5 is 180. So what's the square root of 36? So there's not anything else that come out of there. So 2 times 6 is 12, square root of 5. And so the answer choice should be B. Any other questions on that one? Those two? Okay. I forgot to get this over here. So 19. The line goes through these 2 points. 2, 0, and -2, -5. What is the slope of this line? We talked about this the last couple of days already. How do we find the slope of a line if we know 2 points? Perfect. So M we use to represent slope. Y minus Y over X minus X, Keyshawn said, and Keyshawn is right. So remembering that the X coordinate is always the first coordinate in the ordered pair and the Y coordinate is the second. Now, sometimes you see these with subscripts, right? We don't really need the subscripts. We don't have to do this one before we do that one. All we have to do is make sure when we plug into this formula, if we take the first Y here, 0, so it'll be 0 minus -5. When we plug in the x's, we have to make sure we put them in the same order as this. So the x that goes with 0 is 2, so 2 has to go here. It's always minus, and -2 is the other x coordinate. So if you look vertically, it says xy. xy is the ordered pairs, right? So this confuses kids. Remember, you can use your calculator for this. 0 minus 5, positive, negative button. It will help you confirm that that's a positive 5. 2 minus 2, positive, negative button. When you're calculating these equals, it's going to tell you that it's 5/4. That is correct. So the slope of the line that goes through those 2 points in the coordinate plane is 5/4. Any questions on that one? Okay. 20. So if we're given a line graphed on the coordinate plane, and they want us to give them the equation of that line. Easiest strategy, the one I would recommend for you, is to write the line of this equation in slope-intercept form. Because the parts of slope-intercept form that we can see at a glance, slope and the y-intercept, you can see at a glance or just by looking or counting on the graph. Okay? So this is the slope. I don't know. I have no idea. That's the slope, and that's the y-intercept. So remember what the y-intercept is? You can tell me what the y-intercept is of a line on a graph. Sorry? Well, there's a lot of numbers on the y-axis, right? So Keyshawn said it's the number on the y-axis where I think the line goes through, right? So here, what we can do is we can just literally fill in the blank from a graph. So we can start with the y-intercept. What's the y-intercept of this line? What's the y-intercept of this line? negative 2 right now, positive 2. So negative 2. And now for the slope, we could pick 2 points and plug it into the y minus y or the x minus x. Or remember, I think we talked about this already this week as well. We could also use the relative or run, which means we just get to count from 1 point, up or down, to or even to the next point, left or right. So the easiest, one of the easiest ones here is the y-intercept. And I'm going to look at, I'm going to find another point where the line crosses at the vertices, so it's nice and easy, there's no fraction point. So to find the slope, I'm going to count from this point, come even to this point. Remember, up or down is what we're doing first. If we go up, it's positive. If we go down, it's negative. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3. So that's positive 3. Once we're even with our point, we're going to go right 1. Right? So remember, positive, right is positive, and left is negative. So our slope is 3. So we're going to take that and put it up here. So that is the equation of that line on the graph. The problem is it does not look like any of those, right? All we need to do now, though, is rearrange it. So once we have the equation, we see that there's an x term, y term, and a constant. Basically, we're putting it in slope-intercept, standard form. We don't even have to know it's standard form, just to know we're trying to get it in that same order. So I'm going to start here with y equals 3x, and instead of plus negative 2, I'm going to write minus 2. So I know my x and y on the same side. There's a couple ways to do it, and I'm going to do it the way I would do it if I were just doing this. I would first start by swapping. I need that x on the left side, so I could get my x on the left side by just rearranging, right? We can flip the side of the equation, the equal sign that the expression is on without changing the value. So it's like if we said 5 equals 4 plus 1, that's the same as saying 4 plus 1 equals 5, right? So that's all we've done there. So, but now my x is in the right spot. What's in the wrong spot? Well, my constant is in the wrong spot. My constant needs to be on the right. And all of these choices, the constant is on the right. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So now what I have is 3x, that goes to 0, equals y plus 2. Now the only thing that's not in the right spot on all these choices, the y is on the left side, so I'm going to subtract y. Opposite of what's happening here, positive y, so I'm going to subtract y. So now I have 3x minus y equals 0 plus 2, or 2. There are a couple other ways to do that problem, but that is, I think, in my opinion, the easiest way. So what is our choice? What is our answer choice? B. And number 21. Which expression is equivalent to x squared minus 3x plus 25 minus 9x plus 11? Given us an algebraic expression, and then our answer choices are all factors. They're all expressions that are being multiplied, right? X minus 5 squared is the same as x minus 5 times x minus 5, right? X minus 6 squared is the same as x minus 6 times x minus 6. What's he doing? Where's your worksheet? So at the beginning of class, I said if you weren't here yesterday, grab the worksheet out of all your out tables. So you worked all these problems, and you're not following along with that. You need to put all that other stuff away for me. That's not what you're supposed to be doing now. So basically, we need to factor this expression. And there's a couple ways we can do it. It's written as 4 terms. We learned how to factor 4 terms by grouping. But I don't think that's our easiest strategy here. So we can combine like terms. If we do that, it's x squared minus 12x plus 36. This trinomial is the easiest trinomial we learned how to factor. This is super easy because it happens to be a perfect square trinomial, and we learned a shortcut for this one. But I'm not really going to review the shortcut, because the shortcut doesn't work on all of them. I'm going to review the strategy that you can use, whether it's a perfect square trinomial or not. So that strategy is to use our x. Since a is 1 here, there's only a coefficient of 1. We just take the constant. We're looking for the factors of the constant, 36. That if you add them together, you'll get the middle coefficient. Right? So what factors of 36 can we multiply together? Perfect. So if I multiply them, I get a positive 36. If I add them, I get a negative 12. So, what's going to be my first, go in the first spot of both parentheses? It's going to be x times x, right? That's the only way to get x squared. And then, yes, it's minus 6 and minus 6. There is no x minus 6 times x minus 6 there, though, which is your answer. Right, because that is the same thing. If you remember the shortcut, that this is the perfect square, that that's the perfect square, that this is the sum of the square root times the square root times 2, that's the shortcut. To remember that, great, and a quicker problem. But if you don't remember it, they can all be done like this. Okay? So make sure you have everything complete. You have your name on it. Staple your work to your worksheet, and you can turn it into the basket. You still have about 5 minutes, so we will work on another problem or two on your Alex assignment. We're not going to sit here and do nothing, not 3 days before, even if you only get to work one problem, and that's probably all you'll get to work, but we need to make sure we're working the whole time we're here. Remember, the only assignments you have to do at home are your Alex assignments, and you can rework them until you get a 100. They're going to be little mini quiz grades.